To trade or not to trade? That is the question. It's the question we're going to be asking ourselves today. I know this is a topic that is so frequently asked, and a lot of players will tell you, it's intuition, it's something you learn along the way, and I could give you a million rules to follow, but we're going to just be following one core idea. Does this improve your position? I'm Charlize, this is Forward Chess, and today we are going to be looking at trading pieces in chess with a few book recommendations that you can get to improve your chess training. Stay tuned. So, as I mentioned, there are many rules you can tell yourself. We could make that a whole other video, but today we're going to ask ourselves one question, and that is, does this exchange, this trade improve our position? And we're going to be looking at a few exercises that we're going to be doing together and understanding what exactly is happening. This is from the book To Exchange or Not, the Ultimate Workbook. And our first position you can see on the screen. The question asks, should white exchange this rook or not? Now, there isn't an immediate trade here, but what the book is asking you is rook d7 the move for white here? Black will capture, we capture back with the bishop. Now, the two strongest pieces are coming off the board, but what happens after? I know it's so easy to blindly swap off pieces, whether you like endgames or not, but there are always repercussions in chess, and we use logic to understand things. So let's use logic here. If we trade, we are forcing black to capture us and the bishop to capture back. Now, let's look at this resulting position. What has happened? The two strongest pieces are off the board, and now we have reached an endgame where it's white's bishop versus black's knight. General rule in the endgame is that bishops tend to be better than knights because they have more space. But look at this resulting position. It's not just that the bishop is better than the knight, but white has suddenly got a lot of threats since black's pawns are on the light squares. So now we can go ahead here and highlight. We are attacking this black knight, but we also have the threat of the bishop moving to c8 to attack these pawns. So does that answer your question? Yes, this was an excellent trade for white, and the resulting position is just winning. Let's move on to our next one. I'm going to flip the board here. We're playing as black. The book reads, black has more active pieces and a pawn majority on the queen side. What is the best way to use this advantage? So, as we said, bishops tend to be better in endgames than knights, but there are quite a few pawns on the board here, so that does change things a little bit. But the important part here that was mentioned was this pawn majority on the queen side. If black is able to break through, then black will have an extra pass pawn on the queen side. And right now, white's defensive piece is this knight. So if we're asking ourselves, should we trade? I wouldn't just give the bishop up for a knight in a normal endgame position unless there is a reason why. And in this case, there's a very good reason why. If we trade off our minor pieces and I get a resulting pass pawn, then I will for sure go for this trade because the endgame is just better for me. So now, take a moment. How is black going to force a trade of pieces here? If you found the move, bishop takes b2, then you are absolutely correct. Why? Well, the idea here is that the white knight will capture back, and then we will go ahead and push this pawn, winning the piece back. The king moves, we will capture, and now you can see that our king and our two pawns are going to overwhelm white's king and white's 1a pawn on the queen side. And this is just winning. White's king is going to have to stay on the queen side looking at these two pawns, while black's king is just going to stomp on over to the king side, catching these pawns and winning the game. Let's look at another position for black. Here we can see black has an amazing pass pawn on h4, but what is happening in this position? So we have a knight, white has a bishop. The position is semi-closer pawns. This bishop isn't exactly very good because it's stuck behind its own pawns. White has one very strong piece. Can you see what that is? That is this rook on f5, white's only strong piece. So, breaking it down to logic, we've got a stellar passed pawn, but it can't move too much with the rook being able to come right at it. So, logically, what do? We need to trade off white's strongest piece because we know the position will be best for us. Pause the video. How are you going to do that? If you found the move, rook f8, you are absolutely correct. We are attacking the white rook. After the exchange, you can see that black is just completely better. Black has a strong knight, black has a strong passed pawn, and black is going to win this game. Now we're going to go into a few positions. I'm going to ask you, should we trade in these positions? Here, black is a pawn up, but it's a double pawn. So, what will you do? So, in this position, we can see as black is a pawn up, but these pawns are doubled. Now, a rule of thumb, I'll just sneak one in here because it's a general rule to remember when you are trading. But when you are up in material, it is good to trade off pieces. You want to trade as much as you can and get to the end game, or you'll just be winning. Whereas if you're down in material, generally you want to trade pawns and hold on to your bigger pieces. So with that being said, without needing to find the solution here, just based on your instinct and understanding of the position, do you think that black should try to find a way to trade off pieces here? The answer is absolutely correct. And there's a nice little tactic that this comes with. Black is going to play rook takes e2 check, sacrificing the rook. After the king captures, it's because we've got this nice little move. Remember, we just captured the pawn, so we're going to give a pawn back. It's our double pawn as well, so double whammy. d3, either making the king move, or if the king captures, then we've just got this very nice knight b4 check. And that's the whole point. We are trading rooks for rooks. So I know we did a lot of moves here, but at the end of the day, it was trading off a big piece, which is what black wants to do. So black has solved two problems. Black's traded off a big piece, and black has gotten rid of those pesky double pawns. Okay, we're going to do one more, and then we're going to kick it up a notch. Final position, black is a pawn up, and based on what we have just learned and gone through, what should logically happen? Also keep in mind that white does have the bishop pair, which in an endgame can be incredibly strong. So pause for a moment, ask yourself first of all, would a trade of minor pieces be good for black? Would a trade of pawns be good for black? And secondly, how is black going to achieve what they want to do in this position? The move here is bishop f3. The idea is that we are ready to trade pieces. Otherwise, I'm going to just capture this pawn. So if white goes ahead and captures my bishop, I'm going to capture on c4, picking up this bishop over here on a3, and I will have a very nice passed pawn to go through. If instead white avoids trade, of course, we will just capture here on g4. Also important to note in this position, of course, getting the advantage is one thing, but going through is another thing. There are so many working parts in chess that you need to work on. That trading, knowing when to trade is good, but the follow-up is also important. So here I hope you saw that after bishop takes on f3, check, king moves, knight takes on a3, bishop takes on b7. What is white's threat now? A very important move here for black was, of course, king d7, stopping white from playing bishop c6 to attack our pawn. This coming up with our king, this is completely winning for black. Now, Let's move on and do a little bit trickier positions. We are going to the intermediate exercises. Okay, here we are. In this position, white to play. Question to you is, should white exchange this knight for black's knight? The position is a little bit trickier in the sense that no one is ahead in material, but there are some differences in this position. Let's look at the pawns. White has 3 pawns on either side. Black has 4 pawns on the queen side, 2 on the king side. So this means that white has a pawn majority on the king side while black has on the queen side. But black has double pawns on the c file. And this is very important to consider. The resulting position of trades is what we've been talking about, but usually there's been some advantage. We also need to think about other things like pawn structure. So here, if we trade off pieces, well, this just allows black to undouble the pawns and have a better pawn majority on the queen side. So this doesn't really make sense for us, which is why in this specific position, the best way forward for white is to not trade. Next, we're going to try a similar type of position as well. Question here, you can see the 2 knights are looking at each other, facing off. Should we trade that knight off the board? Now, similar to our previous position, just capturing the knight right now would not be a good idea because it's going to improve black's pawn structure by connecting the pawns. But there's something else. There's a little bit of a twist in this position. Our knight is also much stronger than black's knight. And this is something to consider every time you're trading. You don't want to trade your good piece for your opponent's worst piece. So here, it's a little bit complicated because we're not going to trade off knights, but our knight is very strong on c4. And the only threat to it is this knight on b6. So white actually does want to trade in this position, but not the knight for the knight. Instead, the bishop for the knight. How are you going to achieve this? Pause the video and see if you can find the way that white will force a trade of the bishop to the black knight. If you found the move bishop a5, then you are absolutely correct. White is pinning this black knight to the black rook, so the knight cannot capture our white knight, and instead black will move this rook away to get out of the pin, after which we can trade. Now, you might be asking, are we not doing exactly what we said we shouldn't do, which is connecting those pawns? Well, yes, but in this particular case, white has a very important move afterwards to ensure that our knight, our superior piece, which is the theme that is more important in this position, stays on c4 on its outpost. And that is by playing the move a4, ensuring that this black pawn is never going to move forward to attack our knight, and our wonderful piece stays on c4 as long as it wants to. In our final position here, you can see that it looks a little bit complicated. Black's c3 rook is extremely active. Yes, we have a nice pawn over here, but the black rook is holding onto it. Black's rook is also aiming to go to g6 and start some attack here. And there's just a lot going on in the position. We also have this knight in exchange for black's 3 pawns. But right now, this knight isn't really too well situated. It can't move anywhere. It can't move anywhere good at that. So white has to decide on a few things to change the position and improve things. What do you think should happen? Should white be looking at trading here? And if so, how? First answer is yes. White should be looking at trading. Of course, we have the minor piece. Black does have the pawns, but these 2 pawns are doubled here on the king side, and we just want our knight to come out. So we also want to trade off black's strongest piece, which is a theme we've been seeing throughout. Black's strongest piece, of course, is this rook on c3. How are we going to find a way to trade that off? There are some ways, of course, there's rook e3, there's also rook f3, but the latter will ensure that you've got bad pawns. So we don't want that. Instead, the move here is rook e3. Asking for the trade of rooks, also unshackling this knight from the black rook's grip, it's able to get out on the next move. Now let's look at the game as it continues. We've captured, black plays rook g6, bringing that rook out of its uncomfortable little corner here on h6. Our king moves out of the pin. Of course, black's threat was also to play h3. We move out. Now another important moment has come. Black wants to trade off rooks. We've got the knight, but is this a good idea at this point? Logically, will our position or black's position be better after this trade? Well, of course, it's going to be black's position that's going to be a bit better, because we will be undoubling black's pawns here on the king side. And we don't want to do that. Those are two of black's worst pieces on the board. Instead, we are going to play knight d3, enabling black to capture our rook instead. The game went on, black didn't, and we just captured, and this is just completely winning for white. We're going to end off with one final advanced position that you can see here on the board. And the question that the author poses is regarding this white knight. What should white do with the knight? A, exchange it for the black bishop. B, exchange it for the black knight. Or C, keep it. Assessing this position, looking at the pawn structures, looking at the pieces, what do you think should happen? So you would have seen white is a pawn up, but it's a little bit complicated because there are quite a few pawns in the position. And although it's an endgame, this white bishop is not doing too good. But instead, the white knight has a lot of potential to jump in between the squares and attack the pawns. In the game, white played knight c2, allowing the trade, and now black's knight is just better than our bishop. When instead white should have played knight a2, followed by the moves king d4 and the knight jumping in, knight to c3. If you enjoyed these positions as much as I did, check out the book on forward chess, To Exchange or Not, the Ultimate Workbook by author Rozentalis. You can find it, it's got incredible reviews, so many positions to work through, and it really simplifies the explanations for you to understand what exactly is going on, whether the player made the correct or incorrect decision. Let us know what you think. Should we cover more of these topics? Maybe turn it up a notch and give a little bit more of complicated positions? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.